players.
It's Carl.
And I'm Zach.
And
these are our strats.
So this is my USA Fender Strat. It's released in, this one was from 1998. It's a metallic purple finish. It has a tone mod. So there's, I believe how that works is each time you crank the tone up, there's tone in both of these, so it's not completely separate. I don't know, I didn't put it in, honestly. I got this from a very good friend of mine's wife's father who passed away. Shout out. This used to be his guitar and now it's mine. I love this thing. This is actually the Strat that made me want a Strat, so it's really special to me to have that guitar. The one you always wanted kind of thing. So it's got 3 single coil stock Fender pickups. Not sure, I know that they did the Vintage Series re-release back in '96. This is not from that, but I know Fender kind of overhauled everything at the end of the '90s. So this is an incredible guitar. I love it very much, and it's got a really creamy sound. I don't use the tremolo.
All right, so this is my Hendrix edition. The Hendrix edition came out in 2016. They put a nice little authentic Hendrix, to kind of commemorate Jimi Hendrix and all his stylings of the time. The thing about Hendrix, he was a left-handed guitar player, so he didn't have a whole lot of options at the time. He took a right-handed guitar and he turned it over, and that's kind of where this idea came from. As far as the guitar itself, if you buy it new, it comes with this pick guard with these pickups. It is a little bit modern. It is not reminiscent of a 1969 guitar, or a 68, whatever he had that they modeled this after. Would have only had a 3-way selector. They didn't have that until what?
77.
77. Wow, that was, yeah. So this actually came with a 5-way selector, a volume, tone, and tone. One of the things that they did to keep it a little vintage was they did not incorporate the tone knob on the bridge pickup. They only did tone controlled. This tone controlled the neck pickup, and this tone controlled the middle pickup. There was no tone control on this. So if you get one, it's actually just a simple little jump right there with a wire, and you have tone control over both these bottom pickups, which I think is kind of a more easy to control, because you might need to take a little bite off of this pickup because it's pretty sharp. But what I've done to this guitar, like I do with a lot of my guitars, is I tinker with them. So I haven't put, these are the stock tuners, and they've got the hole in them where you cut it. If you'd like to know a perfect measurement, measure 2 more tuners with your string, and you stick it inside, and that's about the perfect winding every time.
It's like a bass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has a 9.5-inch fretboard radius, a modern C shape, so it is a very modern guitar. It has all the modern contours of a Fender, the belly cut, the forearm cut, everything like that. As far as my modifications, Mick Mars is my favorite guitar player. Mick Mars of Motley Crue. He plays a Strat that's the Olympic white with a tortoiseshell and the cream and black combination pickups. Now I'm not endorsing pickups, but this is the Pearly Gates set of Seymour Duncans, and this is their classic middle stack pickup for the middle position. If you like humbuckers that still sound like a Strat, these work. These sound still like a Strat, but still have that thick humbucker sound. No, I don't have any push-pull pots or anything like this in this one. I do have the Floyd Rose rail tail.
Very nice.
Very nice, yes. Dive only tremolo, but if you don't need to pull up or anything, because if you're just Then you're playing country. Nobody wants to do that. So the Fender Strat, just the body itself, just the guitar itself, is truly iconic, and it's very synonymous with a guitar shape that you think about when you see, and it's probably the most common, arguably, second only maybe to a Les Paul. I don't know, but
Yeah.
you know, when you think of Fender, when you think of rock and roll, you think about Fender
Look
Strat.
no further.
Look no further.
So the Strat was originally produced in 1954, began design in 1952 by Leo Fender, George Fullerton, and Freddie Tavares, who Freddie was in charge of designing the shape, which he took from a P bass. If you look close, you'll see a P bass in here. It's pretty much a P bass body. They got the headstock design from the old Bigsby guitars, which if you were to look at them, they're very reminiscent of the Fender boat shaped is what they came to call it. But it also had the neck and bridge, the slanted bridge pickup. It's slanted like a Telecaster, but they wanted to improve on the Telecaster and take this into the stratosphere. They wanted it to be like a futuristic Tele. So that's where the custom contour body, the belly cut as the players call it, and then of course the bevel on the arm. Leo actually went around to gigs for musicians at the time and asked them what they wanted, and that was one of the things they told him, is that the Tele, the rough edges weren't comfortable to play with. So that's why they started doing that on the Strat.
He was a man of the people.
Yeah, exactly. And they originally came with one-piece maple necks, so no skunk stripe, as the walnut strip became called. They came with ash bodies. Some of those were three-piece ash bodies, from what I understand. Two-tone sunburst was the only color they allowed until the Fender custom colors released in the late 50s. Rosewood was not available until 57, or no, 59, excuse me, 59, because in 58 they came out with the Jazzmaster, which had a rosewood board.
Oh, yeah.
And so they didn't offer that on a Strat until 59. The five-way switch didn't come out until 77. Before that was only three-way switches, and I never knew that. Speaking of the 57, it was whenever they popularized. At first, this didn't catch on from 54 to 57. People just wanted to play the Tele, but Buddy Holly and the Crickets were on December 1st, 1957. They were on the Ed Sullivan Show. Buddy Holly, I believe, was playing a black one, and after that, they sold like hotcakes. By 2010, over 3 million units of the Strat, 3 million guitars, over 3 million were sold worldwide, making it a very, very popular choice among players. But in 65, when Fender sold to CBS, they changed the logo, they changed the headstock, the wider headstock. If you notice, this one has the wider headstock. Mine has the more slim one. This is how they were at first. But CBS, they also changed the logo to a thicker logo. They call it the TV logo, so you can see it better on TV. And they offered a bound fretboard. They stamped the F on the tuners and the neck plate to make them more flashy. But from what I understand, the 70s is whenever players didn't really like them. They said they didn't play as good. But this is a 98, as I mentioned earlier, which was based on the 50s Strat, kind of the golden era of the Strat. But beautiful guitar, lovely guitar, very expressive instrument. You know, I favor a Tele myself because I like the simplicity. But the Strat, some would argue that it has more tonal capabilities, that you can say more on a Strat than you can on a Tele. But really, it's all about the eye of the beholder and in the hands of the player. But maybe arguably more comfy than a Tele. The neck is, you know, and things like that. But there were a lot of design features that they upgraded with the Strat that you just won't find on a Tele or anywhere else, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So some of the most notable players, obviously Buddy Holly kicking the door down with the Strat in the 50s. Later on, the people that weren't Buddy Holly fans, they were Bob Dylan fans, and then Bob Dylan came out playing a Stratocaster, and the rest of the world wanted one.
Right.
One of my favorite players, Buddy Guy, was famous for the Strat, and the story is that he lost his #1 guitar, and I don't know what it was, but he happened to get a hold of a Stratocaster, and that's where it started. So, and that's where he fell in love with one for the tonal qualities that he could get out of it. But Some later players, Curtis Mayfield, he influenced a young black man by the name of Jimi Hendrix to play the guitar. Maybe you've heard of him. And later on, Eric Clapton, keeping with the blues tradition. This is very synonymous with the blues because you can only get that kind of sound from the Strat. George Harrison, John Lennon, and the Beatles, they played Strats. Jeff Beck, very, very famous Strat player. Mark Knopfler, one of my favorite guys, played Strats. Not only played Strats, he played Strats later that came out with the 5-way selector, and he stayed in that 4th position, and he played with his fingers. He didn't play with a pick, and that's how he got that tone and that sound.
Incredible.
Yeah, amazing player. David Gilmour, great player. Yngwie Malmsteen, one of the fastest players on the face of the earth. Eat your heart out, Eddie Van Halen.
Shreds.
Dude's just...
Yngwie's bad, man.
He's a very, very fast guitar player. Stevie Ray Vaughan later on in the 80s with the blues, playing off of his number 1. And yeah, again, just a basic Strat like Karl's got with single coils and everything like that.
I think Stevie Ray Vaughan, he had a 70s pickup and then a 57 and a 59 or something.
Right.
Yeah, it was like 50-something, 50-something, and a 70s Fender pickup.
Right, and that was the early days. Later on, Fender worked with him to create the Tex-Mex combination of pickups, which was still one of if you can find some Tex-Mex single coils and you want that single coil bite with some punch, highly recommend.
And
fantastic.
Apparently, some of the first Strats that came out, they didn't match the pickups. They just got them out of a bin.
Oh yeah.
So you would end up with just like this one in there, that one in there. They didn't start actually balancing and matching the pickups until like the 70s or the 80s or something.
Quality control really didn't take off until much later. I mean, even with Gibson's, Les Paul himself was just throw whatever he's got in the toolbox together.
That's cool.
So, a lot of your early Strats, even though there's reissues and everything like that, the quality control is great because they all match and they all sound good and everything. If you got an original 50s guitar in 1955, it might sound great.
Yeah, it might not.
It might not. But, just the Strats have always been my go-to, and that's definitely my favorite guitar.
David Gilmour, I think, said that the Strat is the most vocal sounding electric guitar, that it mimics the human voice as far as expression and like I said, you can say so much with a Strat that you can't say with another guitar. And I will even attest, although I do favor a Tele, the Strat is a more versatile guitar.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, David Gilmour was a player for a band called Pink Floyd.
Yeah, maybe you've heard of it.
Yeah.
But he actually played a Tele, Sunburst Tele, and I think he lost it in a fire, got stolen or something. I'm not a historian, I just play these things. And whenever he had to replace it, that's when he got his Strat, the black with the white that everyone is used to seeing him with. He actually didn't get that until he lost his Tele. So it's a natural progression of the instrument.
The Fender Strat is not only the shape of rock and roll, but in a lot of ways it's the sound of rock and roll, because there are so many sounds you can't get without a Strat.
That's true.
You can mimic a Gibson, you can mimic a Gretsch, you can't mimic a Strat.
This is true. There's many of the songs that you know and love, you may not know this, but they were a Strat.
Layla by Eric Clapton, the first one.
Right.
That was Derek and the Dominoes days, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. And this little, and later on in the 70s, when they came out with the 5-way selector, you could do this sound. Roll Tide.
Right. Actually a Florida band.
Absolutely.
But this, really any guitar you get is going to be great. But if you're looking for a guitar, you want to start out, the Squier, which is one of Fender's companies. Squier originally came out in the 80s. They were produced in Japan by Fujijin. who makes a little guitar called Ibanez. You know, very popular. But Squires, they're made all over the place now. But great guitar, you can find a little Squire Strat for super cheap. You can get them for $100, $90.
You can get them for less if you find them used.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So
and you can drop anything right in them.
Anything. But right out of the box, there's nothing wrong with them. So if you see that cheap guitar, go buy it
and keep playing.
And tell them Karl sent you.
Don't tell them Zach sent you. I don't want that. I don't want that responsibility.